Breadbox Media programming is brought to you by...
Finding someone on an online Catholic dating site shouldn't be like shopping for a blender. So why do most dating sites leave you feeling like you're shopping for a spouse? At Catholic Singles, we connect members through our unique user polls and activities, which help you discover other members and their personalities and interests. Because you're a person, not a profile picture. So stop shopping and start discerning. Trust your love story to the original Catholic dating site and use the promo code BREADBOX at checkout for 20% off at CatholicSingles.com.
Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Lisa, Hendey and Friends, where I am delighted, absolutely thrilled to bring you one of the filmmakers behind the beautiful film Fatima. You will see a lot of information about this film because it will be releasing very soon. But we have on the show today to join us Natasha House, who is one of the producers for the film. Welcome to the podcast, Natasha.
Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to sharing some time with you.
Well, I'm delighted. I've had a sneak peek a couple of times at the film, as I just shared with you, and it's absolutely such a compelling story, and I just can't wait to take a little bit of a deep dive with you. You know, I wanted to tell you before we start talking about Fatima, when your name came up as far as the interview, I wanted to share with you my memory of watching The 13th Day, which I know you were integral in the involvement with that film. I watched that. I screened that film in a parish hall in Madera, California, to an absolutely swept up audience that couldn't stop clapping at the end of it. And so your involvement with films like this has been important. And I wanted to ask you how you got involved with Fatima.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I mean, that is really meaningful. I was the producer on The 13th Day, and that was released in 2009. And, you know, that very, very much was the brainchild of a very devout Catholic who had a deep, deep devotion to Fatima. And that really impressed and started my own devotion specifically to the Blessed Mother. And you know, my integration within the Fatima story specifically has been responsible for my own conversion. So, you know, I have a very deep devotion to the Blessed Mother and to the story of Fatima. And really my history with now this major Fatima movie started back then with The 13th Day as I became more integrated into what I would call the Fatima world. And so through my original activities with the 13th Day, I became known by the Shrine of Fatima. I spent a lot of time in and out of Fatima working with some of the key authorities and key organizations who are responsible for the dissemination of the meaning and message of Fatima to the world. And it was part of the credential of that essentially enabled me to become attached to the new major motion picture, the new Fatima movie, because of my specific relationships in the field. And I guess because I've kind of been working within the Fatima story for what is now 15 years, I've become, well, I would call an inadvertent specialist in the area. So, you know, whilst I'm not deeply theological, I am certainly deeply passionate and very knowledgeable about various aspects of the Fatima story. And so, yes, I've kind of become, my name has become a little bit kind of synonymous with Fatima as of today. So that's where it started. That's how I ultimately became involved with the new Fatima movie. I'd actually worked with the one of the lead production companies, Origin Entertainment. I had become known to them in my earlier work, and I'd worked with them on another couple of projects in the past. And then they started to develop the Fatima movie, and it was really around 2014, 2015 that I reapproached Origin, James Folk specifically, and said, look, you know, I think I can bring I can bring a little bit of weight here with my knowledge of the Fatima story and some of those key relationships. So that's really where it started. I became attached 5-6 years ago in the development process, which was really 3 years before we went into production. So yes, that's my involvement. And, you know, we're so delighted to actually be able to bring this movie to the world and particularly to mainstream audiences. That's, you know, one of the key definitions and distinctions with this major movie has always been around our appreciation that the message of Fatima is for the world. It's for all people. And for us to really be able to make that message accessible to the world, we really needed to create a story that has what we call a crossover appeal. And, you know, to be able to attract mainstream distributors who have the platforms and capacity to really push this film beyond purely the Catholic network. You know, the 13th Day was very, very much produced within that kind of the established Catholic framework. And so this has been, the new Fatima movie has very much been produced with a slightly more mainstream appeal, where we're really digging inside what I call the human story behind the stories of the apparition and the miracle of Fatima. So yes, it really is. It is deeply emotional, and we believe that we have created a work that can really appeal and become quite accessible to a very broad public.
It's so wonderful. And Natasha, I was just thinking as you were describing this, how in a way maybe your IMDb listing should say like Our Lady's Secret Agent or something like that. You're an heir to carrying on the message of Our Lady at Fatima. So so many questions, but first of all, I want to ask because this film is in some ways a remake of a 1952 Warner Brothers film, The Miracle of Our Lady of Fatima. And yet, as you've discussed, it really is a film for our age with very sweeping production values. Did you see that early? I'm sure you've seen the early film. I've never seen it. Have you seen it?
I have seen it, yes. I do need to be quite specific here. It's not actually a remake of the 1952. There's certain terminologies in the movie industry that, you know, we have to be mindful of. So just from copyright perspective, this is a purely original work.
There you go. Yes.
But of course, in terms of formula and what the 1952 movie did, we're following a similar formula in terms of reaching out to a much more mainstream public. So it's what I call an A-list formula, i.e. working with higher production value, higher production budgets, working with known stars who obviously, you know, they bring their own audiences as well, and they have their own kind of credential that attracts audiences to the movie. So, you know, it's a slightly different formula.
Well, let's talk about that.
I have seen the movie, but it's very different.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would imagine it would be. And I want to talk about casting for a moment because the film is shot entirely in Portugal, and we'll to speak a little bit about location notes in just a bit. But there is at least one name that will be very well known to viewers who see the film, and that's that of Harvey Keitel, who plays Professor Nichols in the film. And before I guess in the opening scenes of the film, we meet him along with Sonia Braga. Is that how her name is pronounced?
Correct, Sonia Braga.
Who is portraying Sister Lucia. And as her life has reached the point where she's looking back on her memories. And there's this very beautiful opening dialogue between a spiritual seeker, who is kind of like, you know, the person who's there to kind of maybe perhaps debunk Sister's memories. And then we are swept after the opening credits into the life of these children, and really it's there that this film to me has its heart. Can you talk a little bit about both Joanna Ribeiro, who plays Mary, and also Stephanie Gill, who plays the younger Lucia?
Oh. Well, yes. I mean, in terms of casting, I mean, it was a very interesting process. Primarily because, yes, you're absolutely right. The entire film is shot in Portugal. Authenticity, historical accuracy is really part of the one of the key qualities of the film, which the Italians do so very well. Interesting with Stephanie Gill, we cast for the children out of Madrid. So, the challenges of finding 3 young children who, essentially, they appear in pretty much every scene in the movie. And so, the actual, the logistics around filming, the legal logistics around filming that are huge, let alone then finding 3 children, and particularly Stephanie Gill, who plays Lucia, who is ultimately the protagonist of the film, and the film's story and the story world in this particular instance. Actually finding a young actor with enough acting gravitas and maturity to be able to carry not only a movie of this scope. We shot for 51 days, which is a very prolonged shooting period because of working with children. They had actors, doubles and everything else to ensure we retained a legal responsibility for their well-being, so they had private tutors. But, Stephanie was, and is hands down, she's more than a natural. She just exudes a talent that really is quite profound, and she turns on that emotion literally at the word action. She is that character, and she truly did carry the role of Lucia so incredibly well. I mean, this is, a child whose life, the turmoil of her life has turned completely upside down, let alone then a child actor who can act to miracles and to apparitions and to actually be believable in the presence of the Blessed Mother at the same time as then carrying the weight and the suffering of the world on her shoulders, So it really is Lucia is a complex, deeply spiritual character, and I really feel that Stephanie Gill, has the capacity to do that, to actually relay that level of experience. So, as I said, we cast her out of Madrid. We worked with child casting agents to do that. It was pretty much a worldwide search to find these actors. And we knew that there was, some specific schools in Madrid that really were pushing out some quite incredible child actors. And so that's where we found all 3 children. Stephanie Gill had actually, her previous role before that, she'd just come out of Terminator 4. And then this is her first major role in a lead role. So yeah, she's quite
definitely
fantastic.
Be the start of a very bright career, though, as you said.
My goodness,
she really
is incredible.
Yeah, she's really talented.
Incredible.
And I also want to give a shout out to Jorge and Alejandra, who play Francisco and Jacinta.
Yeah,
and particularly Alejandra has this sort of spunk about her that is just captivating.
Oh, she's so spunky. I have a wonderful story. We did invite the key administrators from the Shrine of Fatima, who, I've been working with them for a number of years, and they did attribute an advisory committee made up of, the rector, the vice rector, the chief apostolate for the canonization, the children, and. So, we really did have a phenomenal advisory team from the Shrine who actually came to set one day. And in fact, Sister Angela Coelho, she is the postulator for the canonization, both of Jacinta and Francisco, and then now also for Sister Lucia. And they were all on set for a day, and they were most interested to meet the children because they're obviously their characters and personalities are very, very close to their hearts. And Sister Angela specifically says, "Oh my goodness, that Alejandra specifically, because she is quite spunky. She's like, she reminds her so much of the character of Jacinta and her specific characteristics. So, she's they're so cute. Have such capacity to." Getting children to act and to be able to respond believably. Not only that, but they're acting in a second language, although they all speak English fluently, and then emulating a Portuguese accent. It's a very complex process, but, phenomenal, just really beautiful young children who rose to the challenge incredibly well, who were on set every single day, you know, and loved it. And I know there was a lot of tears for them all as they left set at the end of the shoot. Jorge particularly, he actually performed live for Pope Francis at the Vatican. He is a professional dancer as well as being, you know, quite a phenomenal actor. So, you know, we really did. We were blessed. That's all. We were truly blessed to actually find and be able to cast such remarkable young talent in these roles. And, you know, little Alejandro, when you look at images next to Jacinta, there's a similarity to their look and their vitality. And so, yes, it was quite incredible.
There's this very wonderful kind of turn of dialogue in the film between Professor Nichols and Sister Lucia, where he asks about why the apparitions of Mary occur in the sense of, you know, where one's comfort level is, why Mary looks like us when she comes to see us. And I thought of that as I considered the role of Joana Ribeiro, who plays Mary in the film. And she definitely has just this very kind of luminescent, but also earthy and Portuguese look about her.
Yeah. Ethereal and earthy all at the same time. I mean, she's has a phenomenal beauty, I have to say, inside and out. I mean, this Joana glows. I mean, she walks on. She's just this incredibly beautiful woman, you know. So yeah. Sorry, your question.
Oh, I just wanted to ask about her casting, and although you wouldn't, I mean, in a film about Fatima, Our Lady is the star, but she's not the one, you know, who's on the screen the most. But how was she cast, and what does this actor bring to this role?
Well, again, you know, as you say, it's very much in keeping with part of the thematic, which is developed in the conversation between Professor Nichols and Sister Lucia around, you know, why do apparitions ultimately appearing or choosing to appear in the form in which they are most recognizable to the recipient of that vision, I guess. So, you know, I know there was a lot of discussion. Well, you know, just the characterization of Mary as a start, of the Blessed Mother as a start. There was, you know, again, this was about developing the human story behind the stories of the apparition and the miracle. And, you know, and part of that consideration was about, you know, how do we represent the Blessed Mother? And, you know, we've toed and fro a lot. There was a lot of debate around it, and Marco Pontecorvo particularly was, you know, very impassioned with the idea of actually presenting her as a real woman, as a real woman to these children, so that we get a true sense as to how these children fell in love with this beautiful woman from heaven who appears to them without fear and without, you know, they weren't. A little Jacinta, you know, in Sister Lucia's memoirs, she said that the little Jacinta just kept repeating, "She's so beautiful. She was just so beautiful." It's like, oh my goodness. So, you know, actually characterizing the Blessed Mother in a way that is recognizable to these children. So actually having her appear as a Portuguese woman, a very beautiful, earthy, ethereal Portuguese woman. And I think Joana Ribeiro really does embody those characteristics. And not only that, you know, I mean, you're actually having Joana respond and act in a way that wasn't in, you know, what we call, it's not the floating Mary syndrome where you have this, you know, angelic voices as this floating Mary hovers above the children. It's very much as she's responding, she's also responding in a very, we wanted to humanize the Blessed Mother so that, you know, it's less kind of godly and much more human, so that we feel her emotions, that we can actually experience that emotive reality, that we actually feel the suffering of the world through the Blessed Mother. And, you know, and the gentleness and the nurturing. And, you know, there's a distinct mother-daughter thematic that is developed throughout the film as well, which is, you know, between particularly Lucia and her mother, and then Lucia and the Blessed Mother. And, what is it about this, the Blessed Mother, the humanity, the depth of humanity of this Blessed Mother that attracts Lucia to her so profoundly?
I think it is that juxtaposition, which to me was one of the hallmarks that will make someone who's not necessarily a viewer of faith want to see this film, because you have very much this mother-daughter relationship between Lucia and her mother Maria, who obviously loves her and is a deeply faithful woman, but is also flawed. And I think that there's intrigue and humanity in that relationship that is the counterpart to what Lucia experiences with the Blessed Mother and those apparitions. I want to ask you, because I'm going to run out of time pretty soon, two extra questions. One about the visionary scenes where we see Lucia experiencing these really quite frightening, visions of war and her brother and, the unrest, how that particularly was done in production. And then I have one more question after that as well.
Sure. Well, it was done far less in production and far more in post-production. So, the majority of, obviously, yesterday was the July 13th for the revelation of the third secret, or the secret of Fatima told in 3 parts. So yesterday was a big day in the story of Fatima specifically. But so the July 13th apparition, it was filmed out of sequence. The live action shots were clearly filmed, actually on site as there's Sister Lucia specifically in one of her communications with Pope Benedict did actually identify that, or it has been identified that the visions of the secret was that was imparted to them, was given to them in a way that evoked iconography, religious iconography that the children had probably been exposed to through, going to church, imagery on the walls in the church. And so, part of the development of that, how to actually depict the secret of Fatima was kind of evolved from that perspective. So, we do enter that vision of hell through the dynamic of, through special visual effects of going into ultimately a dramatized version of one of the iconographic images that are on the local church walls. So, that was done in post, but conceptually we went through some, I know Marco Pontecorvo had a very in-depth interaction specifically with the chief historian at the Shrine of Fatima called Marco Daniel Duarte to really kind of dig around inside what the interpretations of those secrets really were, what the church's perspective of the interpretation was, and how Sister Lucia experienced and perceived that. And that's ultimately what informed his creative decision to show the children's reception of those secrets in that way. So yes, did I answer that?
Yes,
question
you did, and it's actually quite convincing to the point of actually being very frightening. So, well done.
Thank you.
Well done. And finally, I want to ask you about the score. I'm the mother of a musician, so I always pay very close attention to music and film. And there is this just very perfect score. Paolo Boncini, I think, Boncino.
Paolo Bonvino.
Yes,
Paolo
Bonvino.
Yes.
And his music is so perfect. And there's one particular moment where Lucia is just lying in some tall grass. It just took my breath away. The music was so beautiful. But I know everyone will want to know about the involvement of Andrea Bocelli and his Grazia Plena, which is rolling over the ending credits, which you'll want to stay until the screen goes dark because it's just such a beautiful performance. Can you say a few words about Mr. Bocelli's involvement?
Yes, certainly. So Andrea Bocelli very specifically has a deep devotion to the Blessed Mother. And just as we were really beginning our interactions, Bocelli's involvement was very much the brainchild of one of our wonderful producers, Rose Ganguzza, who whatever happens, Bocelli needs to be attached to this picture, because she knew of his very deep devotion to the Blessed Mother, and he's very devout Catholic, it was a genius moment that as we started our pursuit of that attachment, it just so happened then that Bocelli, Andrea actually performed he performed at the Shrine of Fatima in honor of the centennial celebration. So that was in 2018 that he actually did a free concert in the new basilica at the Shrine of Fatima. And he went and visited Fatima for the first time with his wonderful wife. And, he actually did, the pilgrimage on his knees around the little capellita. So, his attachment to the project was absolutely inspired. We've been utterly blessed to be able to have his involvement and to work with his incredible voice on Gratia Plena, which was written by Paolo Bombino, and it is going to be quite a profound part of the soundtrack. So, he's a big supporter of the film. It was definitely an element of devotion for him. To bring his voice and the gravitas of his persona to the movie. And, I think all in all, we've just been another one of our truly blessed moments that we honestly feel that we've received some form of heavenly blessing on the picture. So we've been going at this for a lot of years, and to actually be in a place now to bring it to fruition and to actually bring it to audiences to truly love and appreciate, we're so excited and so profoundly moved to actually be, every movie is a miracle. I think this one is a miracle on top of a miracle. I really believe that we've been blessed. Truly. So,
it comes at a time that it's greatly needed. As you and I speak, I believe last night was your first premiere. I saw some pictures from the film being shown in Miami in a very unlikely setting, very much a pandemic premiere. Can you say a little bit about what is expected? I mean, we're about a month out as we record from when this will be released nationwide, but plans are a little fluid in these days, which is why this film is so needed. We need the faith of this film to bolster us during a time of challenge for our spiritual lives. But what are your hopes for the release of the film and how people will be able to see it?
Well, obviously, we are very much going for a theatrical release to start. We're going to be following the traditional paths of starting with theatrical. This is a movie that should be seen in community with friends and family. Yes, everything is moving. We're being quite, I would say, opportunistic with some of our plans as we move through this new cycle, this new reality. Over this coming month, we are hosting another set of drive-in. We're doing pop-up drive-in movie premiere screenings in major cities throughout the United States. We're going to LA this weekend. We're doing a pop-up drive-in at the Palladium, and then we go to we're in 8 other cities. But as far as August the 14th is concerned, we are still very much working with that date. It may well end up being some kind of staggered screening schedule throughout North America, subject to what theatres are open. One of the key benefits I feel that is going to, I think, be most profoundly felt with this movie going into theatres first is because the theatres themselves are really positioning themselves as safe places, i.e., they're practicing social distancing. Those that are remaining open practice social distancing. So some are running at 25% capacity, some are running at 50% capacity. And so part of that strategy is for us to actually be able to encourage groups and or families to literally what we call block book a theatre, which is actually in some places could be 25 tickets, which for some people is one family. So it's actually an opportunity for you to go as a private screening with your close family or friends to a CDC guideline regulated, safe, healthy environment to actually go and watch this movie together as a group while practicing social distancing. One of the beauties that we're actually able to provide as well is a slightly more extended run through the theatrical cycle of the film, that, it won't be how's the film doing in the first weekend, right, get it off the screens. It's going to be, okay, so we're going to have more screens available that will be running all day long in those theatres that are open. Then it will go to the next state. If the state is closed down, then it'll move to the next state as soon as the theatres do reopen. So yes, we're working very closely with the theatre chains to be able to choreograph a strategic release throughout the theatre chains. We're working very closely with them to ensure and assure a safe environment for the patrons of the film. And then we're working with individuals and groups to ensure then that their needs and requirements are fulfilled. Obviously, some of the key strategies around, usually this would be a block booking of a group sale of an entire theatre, which could be 100 seats. So now we're working with that to create smaller pockets and smaller groups. So yes, please, we are asking everybody to support the movie, to show your support for the film, to actually come out and do see it. We're creating as safe an environment as we possibly can. And then it will be going through, there will be other ways to see the film if people do feel uncomfortable about the idea of actually subscribing to go and see it in a movie theatre. It will be going to then TVOD, going to home entertainment, probably around November. Well, so, there will be opportunities later in the year.
I would say don your mask and go to the theater. I'm already imagining
Please
that for
do.
those of us who've always wanted a home theater in our homes. It sounds like we're just about close to that in the theaters. I'm already putting together my 25, so that's amazing.
It's a private home view screening with you and your closest friends. It's a great opportunity, to actually go and experience what is ultimately a beautiful film with the key themes of the message of Fatima of faith, hope, and love. I mean, this is a movie that we need today, and we're so buoyed by the timing and the opportunity now to really kind of go out and put this into the world at the time of most need. So thank you so much for the acknowledgement of that.
I'm thrilled to have had the chance to speak with you, Natasha, and just grateful for all of your efforts and for giving us the gift of something so beautiful. We'll be praying for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Prayers are welcomed. Prayers are well received.
Prayers and ticket purchases. Well, friends,
exactly.
That is going to be it for this week's episode of Lisa Hendey and Friends. We will have in our production notes for the podcast all of the ways for you to get in touch with how you can screen Fatima ASAP. Definitely keep in mind that this is going to be something really important for us to show our support for. I say it often, if we want films like these, we need to go out and support them. So until next time, I wish you an awesome week. God bless.
Looking for exceptional coffee delivered fresh to your door? We have the answer. Our friends at Grim Bean Coffee produce small batch artisan coffee using top-tier coffee beans. The coffee is roasted when you order, guaranteeing the freshest coffee possible. Check out Breadbox Roasts, a new line of Catholic-themed coffees available at www.grimbeancoffee.com/Breadbox Media. Experience coffee like never before.